Good afternoon, everyone. It's a few minutes after 12. I'm sure we'll have some others that'll be joining us shortly. But in order to stay on time, we're going to go ahead and get started. So thank you for joining us for the Women in Ag virtual meeting. With us today, our speaker is Dr. Blake Bennett, who is one of AgriLife's economist specialists out of the Dallas Center. So with that, I will turn it over to Dr. Bennett.
Thank you very much. I do appreciate it. Welcome to class. We're going to be talking about insurance today on ag property and how you can protect yourself. And going to show you a couple of packages that are out there that are pretty nice in terms of how they work. With that, we'll just go on and get started, and I will share my screen here, and let's go to the slideshow. And can you see that presentation on your screen?
Yes.
Thank you, Jacqueline. Do appreciate it so much. I can't see the chat box, so if y'all got any questions, by all means, just speak up. I don't mind one bit. Just interrupt and speak up and say, "Hey, hold on just a second. Go over that again." We'll kick right off into it, and first of all, talk about one of the first packages I'd like to talk about that's available is called the Rainfall Index, Pasture, Rangeland, and Forage. We typically call this PRF insurance. Whenever you buy PRF insurance, you're protecting your pasture, your rangeland, your forages from adverse rainfall. So it's rainfall that deviates from the norm in the area. It's based on a precipitation index. We're going to be showing you some of the grids that they have across Texas. Each county has about 9 grids. And again, it gives you the ability to replace some feed costs during years whenever it gets drier than normal. Even if you look at some of the wetter months, we may not reach what we normally reach during a specific time period. So this rainfall insurance gives you an opportunity to protect year-round that forage. Again, it's based on a grid system, and whenever you sign up, you got to sign up in January, but payments are not due immediately on that property. We're going to go into when those payments are due here in a minute. And the payments are not based on, the indemnity payments are not based on what you actually receive on your property. It's based on the deviation in the grid as to how it deviates. Again, so it's not necessarily the rainfall that you receive, it's based on the grid's deviation from normal. So you may actually get normal rainfall on your property, but the grid is lower, so you may receive a payment. At the same time, you may not receive rain in your grid, and the grid itself may actually get ample rainfall, so you may not receive a payment. But I'm going to tell you, this program, it's a very good system, and I've seen it work several times across the entire state. This thing does pay. So let's get into it a little bit deeper. Again, you can insure your pasture from adverse rainfall. You can also insure your hay crop against adverse rainfall. And they've even got a similar package to this where you can insure bees on your property. You're insuring the rainfall that produces the forage that bees go out and forage on. So it's again, it works the same way. Both of them work the same way in terms of how you select the coverage and also on their payments. The difference is the cost. It's going to cost less to insure pasture land than it is to insure your hay crop. But again, the payments work the same. Here's a website, and Jacqueline, you are going to have copies of all of this so that you don't have to write that down. Honestly, if you were to search pasture, rangeland, and forage insurance on your computer, you can get to this site where it can give you an opportunity to do some what if scenarios. This insurance is purchased through your local crop insurance agent, and the premiums are subsidized by the federal government. In fact, 51% of the premiums are subsidized, and that subsidy is what makes this work so well. The sign-up deadline is December the 1st. The billing in terms of when your premium is due is not due until August the 30th. So any payments that you receive from the start of the calendar year until August the 30th actually go towards paying your premium. So I've seen a lot of producers that sign up, and by the time they get to August the 30th, their entire premium's already been paid by indemnity checks that they've been receiving, and they're just receiving checks at that point. Here's a website that web address gives you. And right down here in the bottom, this is the PRF decision tool. It allows you to do some what if scenarios. Whenever you open up that tool, this is what you get. You get a map of the United States and Canada and Mexico. You can actually search the address of your property, or you can move this map around until you find your property, and then you can click on it, because ultimately what we're looking to find is the grid ID number. Right up here in the upper left-hand corner, there's a box that you can search for the address. I can tell you this decision tool was down last night for maintenance. So I went back to one that I did a little bit earlier in the year. I searched an address out in Abilene, Texas. I can tell you that this thing, different grids will pay a little bit different based on rainfall, but I'm going to show you how to walk through this. And honestly, I haven't found a grid in Texas that this doesn't work very, very well. This insurance does not work very, very well everywhere across the state. I've seen this thing work. I searched a specific address in Taylor County out in Abilene. This happened to be the county agent's office out there where I did the program. And we got some important information on here. You can check the address, but more importantly, the grid ID is what we're looking for to find out what grid we're in. Now, I've zoomed out and I've showed you this is the grid system that they have. These grids are pretty small. In fact, there's usually about 9 grids in every single county, at least 9 grids in every single county across Texas. So, you can hone in pretty close on your property. Again, here's the address that we're looking at right now. I've got it right here in Taylor County. The next step that I'm going to do is I'm going to click on that decision support tool. That decision support tool takes me to a page that looks like that. There's some information we got to fill out. I'm going to give you some helpful hints on how to fill this thing out and what I generally recommend to do. First thing we check, yep, the grid ID is 14822. That's the one that transferred over from that map. Next thing we got to do is we got to choose what our intended use is. It's either grazing or it's haying. So it's an either or there. If you've got a pasture and you're just grazing it, of course you're going to check grazing. If you've got a hay field, then you're going to check your haying operation. For this example, I've checked grazing. Next thing you do, you got to select your coverage level. My suggestion is always load up. You can choose from 90% all the way down to 70% for PRF insurance. My suggestion is always load up, always go the highest. What this is saying is that if in a time period rainfall is 90% below normal, if you've selected the 90% level, if it's below 90%, so if it's 89.99% of normal for that time period, you start getting a check. Of course, the lower you go, the lower the premium's going to go. But I've done a lot of analysis since this thing piloted way back in the day, and it's always paid to load up to go as high as you can. So I always choose 90%. That's what I do on my own property that I have. The next thing is a productivity of value. It allows you to individualize this coverage based on the productivity of your acreage. This is the what you're going to say. This is the productivity of your acreage within that grid. Now, you can select a long list of how productive you think your property is. My suggestion, always go the highest. Always check the 150%. Again, your premium's going to go down in terms of, if you select a lower productivity level. But honestly, the way this thing pays out and as highly subsidized as it is, I always suggest go in and select the 150%. Next two things you got is the insurable interest. That's how much interest do you have in the property. Ownership interest. If you own the whole thing, then it's 100%. And then you select your insured acres, how many acres this property represents. Next thing you can do is select the sample year. 2023 is not over with, so you're not going to be able to look at the entire year for 2023. I selected 2022 so that I could look at how this would perform for the entire year. Next part we got to do, we got to select. You'll notice here on the right-hand side, you've got this box, this table with the green rows and the white rows. These are the insured areas that you're going to pick. These are the time periods. You have to select at least two. Now, the time periods are broken up into 2-month intervals. So you could pick January, February, or you could pick February, March, March, April, May, June, all the way through the entire year. So if you select January, February, you cannot select February, March. You can't double dip on the same month. If you select January, February, then you'd have to select March, April. And you get to select what percent you want to put in each of those time periods. So you could put 50% January, February, and 50% in June, July, if you wanted to. I tend to take a more, let's look at it broad-based across the entire year. I want to get coverage across the entire year. So what I generally do is I try and spread that percentage out across the entire year. Yes, I'm focusing more of my percentage in the growing months. Here, I put 16% January, February, 17% March or April, 17% May, June, 17% July, August, 17% September, October, and then 16% in November, December. You can customize your coverage however you want. What this tool is allowing you to do is we're not signing up for coverage. It's just allowing you to do some what if scenarios. Again, I tend to suggest or think, let's spread it across the entire year. There's some that say, well, I only want to focus on the growing months. And then you got some that say, well, rainfall in January, February, that's going to produce grass in the spring. So I want subsoil moisture. Also, some may say, well, typically we got more rainfall in the spring. That's true. More rainfall, it's going to take a bigger deviation to drop below the percentage that I chose, my coverage percentage, versus maybe a January, February where we might not have as much rainfall. So, you got to, if you miss a couple of inches in January, February, you may drop below that threshold. I tend to spread it out across the entire year as equal as I can. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select calculate, and it's going to use the information that I've got as far as for 2022, based on the rainfall index for my grid. It's going to produce output that shows me how this would have performed throughout the entire year. Once I hit calculate, I get a bunch of numbers that are filled in the different rows. This shows me each single time period how this would have performed. So for instance, in January, February time period of 2022, for that grid number, I would have received an estimated indemnity of $27. In March, April, I would have received an indemnity of $368, $299 for May, June, all the way down. For the entire year, my estimated indemnity that I would have received is $987 for this 100 acres. The producer premium, what I would have had to have paid was $364. So this thing paid for itself, about a little bit more than $600 total for this entire property. So this thing worked pretty well in 2022. You can again see payments are not due until the start of September. So you can see in this example, I've collected enough indemnity that I signed up for the program, and my payments, my indemnity payments, actually went towards paying my premium. By the time September rolled around, I wouldn't have had to pay for anything. Right here on this right-hand side, again, is where all your indemnity payments are shown. And right down here at the bottom, you can see is where your payments would have, your total for the year would have been. This example, I switched over to haying. You can see that the total cost is a lot more expensive, but also my payments are a lot more for haying. So again, they work exactly the same. I just switched it over, and again, the net here is for haying, I netted about $44.45 per acre, or $4,445 on 100 acres for this insurance package. This thing has worked really, really well in 2022. It's pretty simple to set up. Some people think, how has this thing worked over time? Fine, it worked great in 2022. It was a drier year. How has this thing worked over time? I looked at history, because this website, they actually have that index that goes back into the 1940s for each grid. So I can actually go back and I can just do some what if scenarios. What if I would have bought this package 20 years ago? How would it have performed 19 years ago, 18, 17, all the way up till today? What I actually did is, yes, this program's been around since 2007. I looked at the last 50 years, though. How would this insurance package have worked for the last 50 years? And across the entire state, I've done this every single time I've made this presentation, and we work out about the same for every single grid across the state. You're going to look at maybe the values are a little bit different, but again, the percentage of times that we hit and we actually collect, it's working out about the same percentages. Right here, as far as grazing, these are the results for the last 50 years for that grid out in Taylor County. You can see the red numbers show years that we actually paid a premium and we didn't earn enough indemnity back to repay that entire premium. So for instance, in 2018, we got enough indemnity that we almost paid it all. We had to end up paying 1 penny per acre. In 2014, we made $5.95 per acre more than what our premium cost us. So you can see the red numbers show the years that we actually paid the premium and we didn't get enough indemnity back to recover all that premium. The years that are in black, those are the years that we made more than our premium cost us. A summary of this: over the last 35 years, 70% of the time, we made more from this insurance package than what it cost us. 70% of the time. Over the last 15 years, 30% of the time we've recovered more in our indemnity our indemnity was lower than our premium. Makes sense. If 35 years out of the last 50, 70% we made money. Well, 15 years out of the last 50, we didn't make money. The thing is that most years we'll get a time period in there where we're going to receive some indemnity, and maybe the rest of the year is wet. There's only been 2 years out of the last 50 that we didn't get any indemnity package, any indemnity payment whatsoever. That means the entire year was wet. 2 years out of the last 50. So at least 48 of the years we're getting at least some money back. Only in 2014 and 2015 would we have had to pay the entire premium and not getting any payment whatsoever. So 96% of the time over the last 50 years, we've at least gotten some money back. 70% of the time, we've gotten every bit of our premium plus. Net average payment from 1973 to 2022, the average payment per acre for grazing is $2.15 per acre. That means on average, this program over the last 50 years has paid $2.15 a year. And that's taken into the years that we hit home runs, and that's taken into account the years that we actually had to pay the premium, and we didn't get all the indemnity, didn't pay for all the premium, or at least paid for part of it. On average, this thing is paying $2.15 an acre. The maximum amount that was gained was in 1988. This program would have paid $8.25 an acre. The maximum loss, and I put that loss in quotation marks because is it actually a loss, or did you get enough rainfall that you had forage and you didn't have to go out and buy more hay or buy supplemental feed? The maximum loss, again, that was 2015 and 2004, where we had to pay the entire premium and didn't get any back. So maximum loss is going to be your premium that you got to pay out. The maximum gain, well, it just depends on how dry you are. Same analysis for hay, looking at insuring the entire year. Let's say that we're going to insure hay for the entire year, spreading it across equally. Results 35%, 35 years out of the last 50 or 70% of the time, our indemnity is more than our premium. Again, this thing works exactly the same as what grazing does. The difference is the level of payment. 30% of the time, our indemnity was less than our premium. In only 2 years, again, 2015 and 2004 showed that we paid the entire premium and never got an indemnity check whatsoever. As far as the average payment for hay ground, average payment across the last 50 years, $15.34 per acre. That's what this would have paid if we would have insured every single time period, every single year for the last 50 years. Maximum gain on hay ground, it's the same year it was for grazing, 1988, but the payment's a lot bigger for haying. $58.86 per acre in 1988 was the most this program paid out. And the maximum loss, again, $25.93. That was the premium that was paid for 2015 and 2004. That's the premium that would have been paid. So the maximum loss is, again, your premium that you got to pay. I can't stress enough, and I've been looking at this thing since it piloted in 2007. I've been looking at it exactly the same way, looking at history. And this thing just over time, as long as you're consistent and as long as you just stick with it, yeah, we may get some wet years, but on average, it's going to end up paying about 70% of the time. You're going to get more indemnity than you are going to have to pay out in premium. So another thing that I'm usually asked is, why not try and just target the spring months? My summary here, you're going to hit a lot more home runs if you just put every bit of your eggs in one basket and you just target those spring months. but you're also going to strike out more, meaning the spring months may not have adverse rainfall. Your adverse rainfall may occur in your winter months. So you're going to hit more home runs, but you're going to strike out more. So again, same exact strategy, but what I did is instead of spreading out that percentage of coverage across the entire year, I just loaded up everything and I said, I want 33% coverage in March, April, 34% coverage in May, June, and 33% coverage in July, August. Leave the rest of the year uncovered. So I'm only targeting my insurance during those spring and summer months. Results here, looking at the whole year, if you remember, out of the last 50 years, 35 of the years you got a payment over and above your premium. If you just target the summer months, 31 years or 62%. So in other words, I've struck out more. There's more years that I haven't at least paid my premium and gotten some over and above. 15 years, whenever I'm insuring the whole year, 15 out of the last 50 or 30% of the time, then I paid my premium, but my indemnity didn't cover every bit of it. Whenever you're looking at just insuring the summer months, 38% of the time, you're not getting your full premium back. Years where no indemnity was paid, if you'll recall, whenever we insured the whole year, it was only 2 years. Well, whenever you just take a targeted approach and just for the summer months, that increases to 8 years. You didn't get, any indemnity payment whatsoever. That just shows that, some of those winter months are actually helping us out. Insuring some of those winter months are helping us out in terms of at least getting some premium back. Now, again, you hit more home runs. Yes, this is the results for grazing. Insuring the whole year, our average payment every year was $2.15 an acre. That was over and above our premium. Whenever we do just part of the year, just the summer months, that increases by 3 cents to $2.18. Now, maximum gain, that's where I say we hit a lot of home runs. Maximum gain, if we insure the whole year, was $8.25 per acre. If we're just targeting the summer months, well, the maximum gain there was $15.65 an acre. So that's where your home runs come in. Maximum loss, $3.64 per acre for the whole year, $3.16 for per acre whenever you're just targeting that. And the reason that that's lower is because whenever we're insuring the whole year, well, the insurance company's taking on more risk because there's more opportunities to have shortages of rainfall if you're insuring the whole year. If we're taking a targeted approach, it's going to cost you less premium. But again, there's going to be a lot more years that you're not going to get at least your premium covered. A little bit more to consider. Looking at the grazing strategies, the grazing strategy. The average indemnity over the last 50 years, I've broken down by time period. And the January, February time period, the average indemnity paid over those 50 years was 90 cents. March, April was $1.06. May, June was 71 cents. You can see all of these all the way down to November, December. The average payment over the last 50 years was $1.19. So a weighted average might suggest this could be your allocation for your coverage areas and how you might want to spread that out. Again, you can do a lot of scenarios, a lot of what ifs. I'm going to tell you, I've done some rudimentary ones here by hand, by just sheer force, just working through that and looking at those numbers. Your insurance, your crop insurance agent, they've got programs that will put this to shame in terms of what they can do and how they can look at the allocation percentages. But, it might make sense to put your allocations in this way, just looking at what the average indemnity would have been for the last 50 years. Looking at this strategy of placing those allocations, those percentages across the entire year, the way that I did with these percentages here, if we were to insert these, 35 out of the last 50 years, or 70% of the time, our premium was paid by our indemnity, and we got some on top of it. 15 years, there's no change there. 30% of the time, we're still, we're paying some premium. Our indemnity didn't cover everything. 2 years out of the last 50, our indemnity didn't cover any of our premium. We didn't have any shortages. Where we see the difference is whenever we look at the average payout. The average payout, if we shift those percentages around, $2.32 per acre by just reallocating those a little bit differently based on the average indemnity that's been paid out over the last 50 years. That's higher. That's the highest indemnity we've gotten so far, by 14 cents per acre. Just shifting those percentages around. Maximum gain, $9.16 per acre. It's not as high here, but is targeting warmer months, but it is close. The maximum loss, $3.64 an acre. That was our premium that we paid, and we didn't get any payment from this insurance whatsoever. Before I shift to livestock risk protection, does anybody have any questions about PRF insurance? I've gone through a lot of numbers. I've thrown a lot of things out at you. What I can tell you is I've got a lot of producers out there, large producers, small producers. You can insure down to 1 acre if you want to with PRF insurance. And you can go as big as your property is. It's just there's going to be a different policy for each grid. I've pushed this, and I've looked at it every single way that I could, and my conclusion here is that it works because it's so highly subsidized. I see we got some things in chat. Do we just find a crop insurance agent? Yes, you can. Yeah, and if you're having some trouble finding one, give us a call, because we do. I know some names. Jacqueline, you probably know some names. Be able to get a copy of the presentation. Yep. Okay. So yeah, you can just go through your normal crop insurance agent, and they should be able to handle this. I know that Texas Farm Credit also sells it. And if you need some names, like I said, we've got them for you. Is this information applicable in Oklahoma as well? Yes, it is. Oklahoma. This is across the entire 50 states. And it is 51% of the premium subsidized by the government. And honestly, that's what makes it work. That's what makes it work so well. It's cheap insurance. It pays you during years that you need to buy some supplemental feed. Last couple of years, we've massive drought across Texas, Oklahoma, all across the Southwest, and we've been liquidating herds. And I know people have been trying to hold on to them. That meant that they had to provide supplemental feed because their pastures are burned up. This program right here might provide you enough money that you could at least get by and retain your core herd. So that's really what it's designed to do. But again, you can go as small as you want, as small an acreage as you want. So, if you've got some smaller acreages, and let's say that your county requires, 10 acres maximum or 20 acres maximum to keep your ag use valuation for property tax purposes, then this is another step that shows that you're going above and beyond what is just the minimum requirements. That's another thing that I've kind of pointed out to some people for property tax purposes. This shows the Central Appraisal District, hey, I'm doing a little bit more. So again, this is a good one. I'm going to tell you, yeah, I've had producers that they start complaining whenever, well, I didn't, I had to pay my premium this year, come September and they sent me a bill and I didn't like doing that. And I'm going, why are you complaining? That means that you've got rainfall and you've got grass. You're not having to buy supplemental feed. Don't just look at it as a way to generate income. It generates that income in years that you need it the most. So, again, I've seen producers that they get into it and it doesn't matter year after year. They know they're going to sign up because they never know when it's going to hit and they're going to need it the most. So we will go on to livestock risk protection, or LRP. This is again sold through your crop insurance agents. It is a single peril insurance on livestock prices. You can insure one head. You can insure quite a few. We're going to go into the numbers as far as the maximum here in a minute, but you can insure down to it even just one head, one calf. It's designed to protect against prices going down. It does not cover any other peril. It does not cover death, loss, or disease. I put deal. Death, loss, disease does not cover any of those two. This is only price protection. How this thing works: you submit an application to get this insurance through your crop insurance vendor. You can buy price coverage for up to 12,000 head of feeder cattle, and those feeder cattle can be expected to weigh up to 1,000 pounds at the end of the insurance period. It also is available for calves, unborn calves. You can insure up to, I believe the break-off point is up to a 500-pound calf. And so it works exactly the same. Yes, you can insure just one head if you want to. What you do is you choose a coverage level, choose your coverage price from 70% up to 100% of the expected ending value or the expected price. And you can choose your length of coverage. You can take out this insurance for cattle that'll be ready to be sold 13 weeks from now, all the way up to 52 weeks or a year from now. So, you can insure unborn calves that hadn't even hit the ground yet, and you can insure them for a year from now. At the end of the insurance period, so in other words, if we took out, say, an insurance package for 13 weeks, at the end of that 13 weeks, if the actual ending value is below our coverage price, you get paid an indemnity for the difference between the actual ending value and the coverage price. Now, this actual ending value is not the price that you receive, and it's not the futures price. It is the Chicago Mercantile Exchange Feeder Cattle Price Index. They put out the index every single day, or every single week. And that's what's tracked. That is the actual ending value. So it's not what you actually sell your cattle for. It's that index price. This price index, you may be asking, well, how did they come up with that? It is the average. It averages the head counts, the weights, and the prices from several different livestock auctions across the nation. And that's where they determined that price. This feeder cattle policy, it uses that weekly weighted average slaughter cattle prices in 5 areas across that are reported by the Agricultural Marketing Service, part of USDA. So again, it's not your actual price. It's this index that you're comparing your policy against. Premiums, I'm going to tell you that they are subsidized by the federal government. Here's the different subsidy levels. If you choose coverage between 95 and 100% of the actual ending value, and you'll get to pick that actual ending value. If you choose to insure between 95 to 100% of that actual ending value, USDA is going to cover 35% of the premium. If your coverage is between 90 and 94.99%, they're going to pay 40%. As your coverage level goes down, USDA subsidizes more and more. But again, it's going to take that market moving a lot lower than the actual ending value in order for your policy to kick in and to trigger a payment. So, this is where your insurance agent can help you pick your levels if you're choosing to go down this route. Here's an example. Let's say we got 10 head of cattle, and in 13 weeks, they're going to weigh 900 pounds, or they're going to be 900 weights. That's what CWT stands for. All you'll do is take the total number of pounds, divide it by 100, and that's how you get your 100 weights, because this policy is based on 100 weights. And we want to protect the price of those 10 head. We go to the crop insurance agent. We say, look, I want to ask about this LRP. They're going to show you a table. Here's a picture of what that table looks like. These are the LRP coverage rates for the actual ending values that were reported on Friday. So you can see expected ending value, $277.45 per hundredweight. That's our 13-week time period. You can see right here the endorsement length. All of them except the very last one are for the 13-week time period. And $277.45 is that expected ending value. Right there. Let's say we choose 98.32% coverage. That's the coverage level that we want. So if prices fall between now and 13 weeks from now, if they fall below that expected ending value, whenever we get to the end of that 13 weeks, if prices are, if they're equal to $272.78 or lower, we're getting a payment. That's how far they've got to fall. If they end up at $272.78 or lower per hundredweight, then we're getting a payment because we're going to buy that insurance at that level. Right there, you can see the 0.9832, that's the coverage level, percentage coverage, and the 272.78, that's our coverage price. That's where we're saying it doesn't go any lower than this. The expected ending value is 277.45. We're saying we're buying it at 272. We're willing to give up a little bit, but we don't want it to go any lower than 272.78. The ending date is January 12th, 2024. That's whenever we expect to sell those cattle. Right there in the table, that's the ending date, January the 12th, 2024. And finally, the premium that we're going to pay, $3.85, and that's where that's listed. Producer premium per hundredweight. Okay, that tells you right up front, that's how much that's going to cost you. So we're going to buy coverage that in 13 weeks, the cattle price it cannot go any lower than $272.78, and we're going to pay $3.85 for that premium. So number head is 10 cattle, 900 pounds or 900 weights. Our expected ending value, $277.45 per hundred. Coverage price is at 272.78. The total premium is $3.85. Because we're between 95 and 100% coverage, the government's going to pick up 35% of that. Okay, they're going to pick up 35%. So our actual out of pocket is going to be $2.50. So our premium that we're going to have to pay is $225.23 for that coverage. Price is not going to go below $272.78, that index price. Now we roll around, it gets to be 13 weeks from now. We actually sell those 10 head, all of them weigh 900 pounds, 900 weights. Our expected ending value is $277.45, coverage price of $272.78, and let's say that the actual index price is $250. Well, we're getting a check. We're going to get a check for the difference between our coverage level and what the actual price was. So again, 900 weights times 10 cattle, that's 90 hundredweights that we've actually insured. Our coverage price minus the actual ending value, our coverage price was $272.78. We subtract off that actual ending value of $250. Well, that's $22.78 per hundredweight. We multiply that $22.78 times 90, it's going to pay us $2,050. We paid $225 for the policy. We're getting $2,000 and a little bit of change back because prices softened. They moved lower. Now, if prices move higher, obviously you're not going to get an indemnity check, but you've bought that insurance. It's kind of like buying insurance for your car. You buy insurance and you pay that premium. You don't hope that you got to collect on your auto insurance. You're not hoping that you have to collect here. It's just what happens in case you do. Again, if prices move lower. Rules here. There are some rules. You cannot enter into an offsetting transaction. In other words, you cannot go in and trade futures and options and try and double dip. You got to own the covered livestock for the term of the endorsement. And you cannot sell or transfer ownership more than 30 days before the end of the endorsement period. So you have to hold those cattle at least until 30 days before the termination of the contract. So, that's one, you can't get rid of them early. PRF insurance, it offers a way to protect against adverse rainfall in the area. It's a package that I've seen that's worked since the pilot program started in 2007. This is one that I encourage you at least go take a look at. It's worth your while. Does it pay every single year? No. About 70% of the time, it's paying its premium plus, though. So, and it's somewhere for grazing. It's between, say, $2 and $3 per acre is what I've seen across the entire state of Texas. And I'm sure, someone, asked about Oklahoma earlier. It's probably about the same up there. It's so heavily subsidized. This thing works really, really, really well. It offers protection for both small and large operations. Again, you could get insurance on just 1 acre. So it can go extremely small. LRP, livestock risk protection, it gives us a way to protect against prices going down for livestock. It's based off of index prices. It's not off of our actual sales price. It's an index price. Just like PRF, LRP insurance can protect small and large operations, small and large herds here. Premiums, again, are subsidized by the federal government. Works really, really, really well. So both packages I've seen work. Now, I didn't do sensitivity analysis on LRP insurance. Number one, they don't go back in time. I can't go back and I can't do that sensitivity sensitivity analysis, looking at the premiums that were paid, the cattle cycle, the cattle market, that can change things. Right now, we're in a strong market. Do I think that LRP is going to really pay for itself here, say in the next year? Maybe not. But once we turn the tide, once we get these herds rebuilt, yeah, prices will soften. So LRP will become very popular. PRF, you're insuring against Mother Nature not doing what she does on average. So PRF insurance, I've kind of encouraged it from the beginning. I'd be happy to answer any other questions that y'all may have. I see one that's in the chat. Okay, that was Jacqueline putting in the survey. Do y'all have any questions on this? Jacqueline, do you have any questions?
Blake, I've got a lot of questions on it, but I'm not real sure where to start.
Well, you know what? We've got a few minutes. I'm going to tell you, PRF insurance, it's one that once producers buy it and they get going with it, they don't stop. And it is heavily subsidized. 51% of the premium is paid by the federal government. And honestly, that's what makes it worthwhile. Because if those insurance companies weren't getting that subsidy, those premiums will be through the roof. Because you're betting on the weather there. That's honestly, that subsidy makes it doable.
No, and that makes a lot of sense. I've just got to kind of digest a few things.
Yeah, and I just gave some simple, easy analysis in mind. You talk to your insurance agent. I in particular, I've seen the stuff that Texas Farm Credit's done. And boy, they go in there and they give the probability of payments with this type of allocation. This is the probability of a payment, and they get in some high level stuff, and they can help you with your allocation for each individual grid because it'll take in all of those factors that I was doing by hand. I was doing old school. They're pulling it all in. They've written programs where it pulls it all in, and it says for this grid, here's the allocations that we suggest. Now, you don't have to do it that way. You can take a conservative approach. But boy, oh boy, some of the tools that are out there are just amazing.
Good to know. Good to know. I do appreciate your time today, Blake. As you mentioned a minute ago, I did post a link for the survey in the chat box. If you would, please click on that and complete that survey. That helps Blake and I in terms of programs and information that customers, producers are wanting in the future. So that just kind of helps us with program planning moving forward. Also, I did not mention at the beginning of this program has been recorded. I will do a little editing on it and we'll be posting it to the Tarrant County YouTube page. Blake, will you send me the slide deck as well? I
am just about to do that right this second. I was just putting it into a PDF format and I'm about to shoot it on over to you.
Awesome. I appreciate that. So once I have the recording posted to the YouTube page, which hopefully will be this afternoon, I will be sending that link as well as a slide presentation to everybody that was on the program with us today. And if there are not any questions at this time, we will go ahead and conclude the meeting today. Thank you everyone for being with us.
Thanks a lot, Jacqueline. I do appreciate it.
Same here. So again, thanks for everybody for being here and we'll see you at the next one.